Hello, this is Grant Hughes of Grant Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Please hit that like button, share, and subscribe. This video I put out yesterday during 4th of July, but it got buried by a YouTube algorithm and people were doing various things and it got missed. So I'm re-uploading it today. Hopefully more people get to see it. And it goes over the timeline of Caleb Harris and various things that the investigation has uncovered by the officials, etc. So without further ado, as my mom used to say, let's get started. Now, if you were watching the show last night, I thought I'd found the house where Caleb Harris and his roommates lived in the apartment complex. So I guess it's not really a house, but it's one of these apartments. They kind of look like houses, though, don't they? So I thought it was this one right here, based on the fact that there's just one window. Let me show you the image. So see how there's one window on that side, and that's one of the only buildings that has it. But I was looking at, and somebody astutely pointed out on the show last night that there's a tree. I thought they were talking about over here, but I think they're talking about right over in this location. And yes, there is a tree in that spot. However, in the sort of faint light here, you can see the roof shape. See how it goes like that and then all the way down? Well, if you look at this house here, it's not like that, especially down low where it's filming. You can't see that. So I went around and looked again, and I found it this time, 100%. It's right there. I didn't notice that there was another one. And look at this. Can you see that? That tree right there is this tree. This house is right there. I mean, this apartment has that one window. And then see how that goes up and down just like that. That's right here. And there you have it. So that means that they live, in this little area here. In fact, I would think it would be one of these in this area right over here. So that's the place where they live. And this gets closer to the spot where at 303 took an image by that bridge right there. All right, so just know that he kind of lived right in this general area, which is very close to the exit. Okay, so we know that at 10:30 they had just got the dog that night, and then 11:53 he sent a picture of the dog to his uncle and mom. Then at 1 a.m. Harris is on Ring doorbell camera. That's exactly that photo we were just looking at. This one right here. That's the Ring doorbell camera footage. This is Caleb right here with the yellow hat and white shirt. And we just showed you where that is in relation to the complex where the apartment is. So that's where they're walking, and they seem to head back in this direction, so they're in there. Then at 2:15 a.m., and I think one of the most significant finds that we have in the case, Caleb Harris is on Reddit, and he posted Oso Bay hiking trail, meaning he wanted to meet up. It's a sort of a hookup Reddit site where you're trying to hook up with people for sexual activities. And here is the Oso Bay hiking trail parking area. So just looking at that, here's the apartment complex right there. This is the well that he was found in right here. So it's very close to the apartment complex. Then at 2:20 a.m., the roommate goes to sleep on the couch. Caleb is awake preparing for his fishing trip and says he's going to order Uber Eats. And then at 2:44 a.m., Harris takes the dog on another walk. I wonder if that's on video anywhere. And then sends a Snapchat to his sister. At 2:45 a.m., he orders an Uber Eats. Now, is he still walking around with the dog in the complex? I would think that's probably most likely. I doubt he made it back up into the apartment complex. So I think at 2:45 he was still in the complex walking the dog. And then at 2:58 a.m. the phone either turns off or dies. So maybe it quits connecting to the network. And perhaps, when he went back into the apartment to drop the dog off, somehow the phone was positioned in a way where it just stopped sending signals to the network. Something like that. And then at 3:03 a.m., he's outside right here and he takes a photo where you see the bridge right here and this waterway, and here's the actual photo. It's right there. There's the waterway, the little bridge that goes over it, and that's at 3:03. Then at 3:12 a.m., his phone pings on, they said Williams Drive. Now, Williams Drive is right over here, okay, right on the edge of this street right here. So it's right where people were parking to get a view of the well. And you can also park right there too. Well, actually, I think most people were parked right there, set up their cameras here to get a shot of this, well or pump house area. Okay. But this has a similar path that you can go on. You can walk from here all the way over to here if you stay along the edge right there. All right. Then at 3:20 a.m., Uber Eats is delivered by a young lady, and that lady's been cleared. So has the person that she saw driving around. That person was cleared too. And then there was a possible sighting at 3:35, but I'm going to rule that out in terms of where the sighting was. I think it's still possible that the sighting was at around 3:35. It just wasn't over in this area where the I think it's the Motel 6 right there. Yeah, so people were saying that there was somebody here driving by and saw a guy walking with his white dog. I don't think that's a legitimate sighting at all. It's a red herring and completely throws off the case, and law enforcement doesn't believe it either. Now let's listen to some of the comments that law enforcement have made, specifically Todd Green.
Might be spreading.
Unfortunately, we can't tell the public everything that we know in this investigation. It just doesn't work that way. We're not able to be completely transparent and share everything that we know. But we can very confidently say we have ruled out the roommates as having anything to do with this disappearance. His friends that he was communicating with that night over social media, we've ruled them out. We've ruled out the Uber driver that made the delivery. We have investigated very thoroughly all of those individuals. We wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't look at that possibility.
So, man, that's really interesting, right? All the people he was communicating with on social media, they've ruled out. His roommates, everybody. So what that leaves is Reddit. I think Reddit is the key to this case, and that is something that law enforcement is absolutely looking into deeply.
We thoroughly searched the apartment. The roommates were very cooperative with us. There were no signs of any struggle, any violence. Caleb's owned a couple of firearms, several firearms. They were all accounted for. The roommates owned firearms. They were accounted for. The fishing gear, like I said, he was a very avid fisherman, and there was some speculation that maybe he went to go scout a new fishing hole or something like that, as odd as it seems at 3 in the morning. But all his fishing gear was there. His waders were there. So there was nothing like that that would suggest that he was, had gone off on his own for any great distance.
But the thing is, when he left the house, he was apparently on shrooms. That's apparently some information that's been leaked. And so maybe he went further away from the house than he would have liked. I mean, it's interesting, too, that his keys and wallet are just in the apartment. He only took with him his cell phone. So I'm not really sure why he did that, but he did leave the apartment on his own, willingly.
I think there was some bad information that it tended to show that his phone was pinging miles away from where he lived or where he was last seen. I think as we've progressed in the last couple weeks and reanalyzed that information and gathered more information from the cell providers, the working theory we have right now is that that last ping was probably right either in the complex or out on the street right in front of the complex.
Yeah, so that's what their knowledge is right now, but they were still waiting for more cell phone data. So what they're saying is that 812 ping is like right out here. So 303 is taking a photo. Was he still sitting there waiting for somebody to pick him up at that point when it pinged? Or did it ping like just right there? That's pretty close to the complex. You know, I'm wondering if it pinged right here on Williams Drive at 312, because they mentioned Williams Drive, but they had it like way out here somewhere. But maybe they've narrowed it down, and perhaps it's possible it pinged right there. I don't know. They probably have the CAS data that shows the distance that the cell phone was, and what he's saying is that it was right in this area. I think that's very interesting, because now they are viewing, and when I say now, I mean that was back then. I think this is even in March, where they believe that's a legitimate ping. But then it seems like at some point they changed it to, well, we don't even know if it's a valid ping, etc., etc. So I don't know where they actually think that ping happened, but I think it's an absolute valid ping. How does a phone ping if it's turned off? You know, is there some sort of, like it's bouncing off of buildings all over the place and eventually, oh, it pings again somewhere when it's turned off? I think it shows that his phone was on at 312. Also, the 303 photo right here also pretty much shows that. I mean, I guess he could have uploaded the Snapchat earlier and it just appeared on the person's phone at 303. But nevertheless, I was taken at 303, and then there's a 312 ping.
It's an evolving investigation, and that could change based on the information that we continue to get back from the providers, from the social media applications and whatnot that he had on his phone and on his computer. So
see, that's interesting, right? They're waiting for the information back from the social media apps that he had on his phone. You know, Reddit, Snapchat, those types of things. Remember in the Delphi case, it took a long time to get that information back.
it's potentially could change, but right now we feel pretty confident about that right now.
It's the most unusual missing person case that I've been involved in my career. And I think most of the detectives that are working on it would agree.
And this is more recently in May here.
After that first week, it kind of evolved into digital data evidence.
Well, there you go. Digital data evidence. Caleb Harris's cell phone information and all digital information. It sounds like on his laptop he also was using Reddit and various apps on there. So I'm sure that that's the information that's leading back to a possible person of interest.
The only thing he left his apartment with March 4th was his cell phone. It hasn't been found.
Isn't that amazing? Like, he only left with his cell phone, apparently even had no shoes on. So, well, but how do we know he wasn't wearing a pair of thongs or something? I guess an eyewitness, perhaps even, there's a homeless person apparently that saw him near the bank as well as the camera at the Simmons Bank. So maybe that person saw him with no shoes on too, and maybe that's what the surveillance camera shows. Remember, he's on shrooms too, so he might not be even realizing his feet are the way they are, but he also could be somebody that's used to walking with bare feet, and his feet are, have calluses on them, and they're able to withstand walking on cement or on the grass next to it for miles. We don't know.
When we're dealing with these providers, cell phone providers, social media, websites, and whatever, we have to issue search warrants or subpoenas.
See that? Websites. That's going to be Reddit. And that is going to be, Snapchat or Instagram. All these places where he goes, they're going to be looking on that. Now, if you go back and look at his Reddit posts on those sexual activity sites where you're trying to hook up with somebody, he a lot of times will post something and then have them meet him on Snapchat. So I think we're really getting a good picture right now of how this investigation is really going. They're looking into the digital aspect and websites.
And once we do that, it takes time, days to weeks for that information to come back. It is a missing persons case, but we certainly believe there's the possibility of some foul play involved.
How great of a possibility?
The more evidence that we gathered tends to show that he left, probably voluntarily.
So he left probably voluntarily, and this is something that they said. I think it's kind of obvious he left voluntarily, and they know that he left voluntarily. How would they know that unless they know for certain that he's leaving to go meet up with somebody? See, to make that statement, we believe he left voluntarily. That means they know why he left, but they're not really sure if, like, let's say he walked out and then they forced him to do something. You know, we don't know about that part, but I think that he left voluntarily, and I think that's, if you read between the lines there, they're saying that he left voluntarily, that he was going to meet up with somebody that he tried to find on Reddit by saying Oso Bay Hiking Trail. So somebody responded to that, and then he left willingly to meet that person. I think that is where they're going, and I think that's what they believe too.
But didn't return.
And he says he left willingly but never returned.
Now, there are rumors of witnesses spotting Harris, and we also asked the assistant chief about that, but he says the department believes no credible witness has reported having seen Caleb on that early March 4th morning.
So I guess that even wipes out the homeless person that saw him walking, okay? They're saying no credible witnesses, so that it saw him that morning. So that's why I'm just throwing out the sighting over here by the Motel 6. I think that's just absolute garbage. It doesn't make sense in the timeline or just how all the parts fit together. It kind of threw everything off. There was a case, Molly Tibbetts, years ago, where the mother said, oh, she had a red shirt. She had a red shirt. It's missing. And everybody goes, oh my God, that means Molly Tibbetts. So she was a jogger that was abducted and murdered. And she worked at a school for kids, something like that, like a day camp. And she has these red shirts that she wears. And the mother said, oh man, one of her red shirts is missing. And then you have to assume then that she made it home from jogging and got up to get ready to go to work the next day and was abducted sometime early in the morning. But then one day we just decided to throw out the red shirt comment and figured out that she was abducted during her jog, and that's exactly what happened. See, sometimes there's pieces of information that if you go with it and it's not verified, then you get stuck down a false path, and I try to avoid that here, and I want to just eliminate this sighting, and obviously they just said there's no credible sightings, so we're going to do that. Green confirmed that the investigation remains a missing person case, but noted the possibility of foul play. The more evidence we gather tends to show that he left probably voluntarily, we just heard that, but didn't return. He said, despite rumors of witnesses spotting Harris, Green stated that no credible sightings have been reported. And by the way, if you have any information regarding Caleb's disappearance, you're urged to call the police tip line at 361-826-2950. So here it is. This is what I think happened. This is his apartment complex, right inside of here, somewhere right in there. I would even think it's one of these because they just went right out here and then back this way. Seems like they would have went in the middle over here. Let a dog go to the bathroom, etc. But anyways, they're walking over here and then came back. And we're just going to start at 2:15. He makes a post on Reddit. And then at 2:44, he's outside with the dog, walking it. The roommates are all asleep. He's walking the dog, and he sends a picture to his sister using Snapchat of the dog. Then at 2:45, he orders Uber Eats, some Lunchables, etc. And then likely at that point, he's either just getting into the apartment or he still walking the dog for a little bit and then goes into the apartment and drops the dog off. Then he checks his post on Reddit and sees somebody wants to meet up with him. So he leaves the dog in the apartment, and when he goes into the apartment, the phone, lost connectivity to cell towers at that point. so they think it was turned off, or maybe an airplane mode or something like that. But it's hard to say. Sometimes there's just absolute dead zones in different places, and I just think it's one of those anomalies like that. I don't think it has any relevance at all. Just like I don't think it's relevant, the barefoot notion. We know that he left the apartment. He didn't have his shoes on, they believe. I don't think there's any value in wondering about the barefootedness, if that's even a word, of Caleb Harris. All right? So then at 3:03, he's over here and he takes that photograph and he sends it to a friend. And then 3:12, the phone apparently pings right next to the apartment here. It could be, some other place in this general area where it pinged, like maybe even over here. But either way, I think Caleb Harris then, two different ways, either walked from the apartment this direction, and this distance right here is 0.56 miles. It's only a half mile. You could probably walk from here just to that spot. I think if we actually extend this out, we can get the full distance. Let's see. Move it to there, right to here. And that distance is 0.8 miles. And if you walk like 4 miles an hour, you can walk a mile in 15 minutes. So let's say that would be 12 minutes or so, right? Because it's 0.8. So 12 minutes, but let's say he's walking a little slower. Let's just say 15 minutes. So 3:03, he'd be right here at 3:20-ish. Right in this area, right? 3:18. But he also got to walk this direction, which is quite a bit further, and that might have taken like 25 minutes to get into this position. And then let's see how long it takes to get from here to right there. And that whole distance is only 1.3 miles if you walk like that. And this is where the surveillance picked him up. So I think this surveillance at Simmons Bank picked him up around 3:30 to 3:40. And I think that's where we're getting that sort of overlap of information. I think the Simmons Bank picked him up at 3:30. And apparently he's walking in a southerly direction. And that's where Caleb Harris just disappears. If we look at the map, Oso Bay hiking trails and the Oso Bay Wetlands Preserve and Learning Area are over here. When you see this spot over here at the Simmons Bank, it seems like if he'd just taken a left right there on Holly Road, he would make his way right to the Oso Bay hiking trails, which is right over here. So again, right there. Now, why didn't he just come out of his apartment and head to the left? Why did he go over here? Was he going to meet somebody over here? Maybe the plans changed. He did say Oso Bay hiking trail, but I mean, how do we know somebody didn't say, "Hey, I'll pick you up over here and I'll take you somewhere else"? Oso Bay hiking trail was just his suggestion. That doesn't mean that that's what they chose, right? So I think after 3:30 or so, when he walks by here, that's when somebody either picked him up and did something to him. And what's weird, though, if that's his body in this well over here, the person actually drove him all the way back there and then put him into a well next to his apartment. How did they get access to the well? Because we realize that he couldn't have been put in there via the pipes. They're only 15 inches. He doesn't fit into those. That's the thing that's odd. I mean, maybe the person had access to here and suggested meeting up over here and then drove him back over there and put him in there. But I mean, I guess that's where we're all just kind of confused. And we don't know that that's him in the well. We're assuming that is, because the likelihood of that not being him, given the apartment complex being right here and he's missing, is very low. However, it's possible it's not. I mean, it's just such a strange case. Leaves, goes down, he's over in this area, and then somehow he ends up back in a well, if that's him, that close to the apartment complex. I believe the Reddit posts are going to be the key to solving this case, and I think law enforcement likely at this point is on to something, some sort of digital forensics is leading back to an individual or persons. Okay, so that's all I got for you guys. Have a great 4th of July. I appreciate all of you. Thank you all for supporting the channel when you can. And I will see you guys maybe even tonight. So thank you all very much for watching. Hit that like button, share, and subscribe. And, as I always say, until next time, be safe out there.